Hello and welcome to another update video about Bitcoin. We want to start on the daily time frame briefly before we dive into the micro structure. Quick reminder, today at 5 p.m. UTC we've got our member live stream. We are going to talk about the US elections, how they could affect next week's markets overall. And it's going to be interesting because I think next week is really going to be a big week. It's going to be an interesting week. I'm looking forward to it. I'm not so interested in the political outcome to discuss that. It's more about, what could happen if this or that happens in terms of election results. And the markets could be shaken up quite a bit. So I think next week will be quite a decisive week. If you want to join the conversation, feel free to check out the membership. The link will be distributed later. It's at 5 p.m. UTC. Looking at the Bitcoin chart, the price broke below the upper boundary line of the trend channel. On the daily chart, you can see that here. However, and this is the trend channel, not really a trend channel, it's the range, right, in which we've been moving in since March. If we look at the daily chart, however, we can see, and it depends on how exactly you draw the trend line, but it looks a little bit as if the daily candle is still, we had a wick below, right? That's how the daily candle opened. But we've since spent time back above the range or back above the trend line. Now it's a bit difficult because it's difficult to draw that trend line so exact, but depends on how you do it, right? On which exchange and so on. But it looks a little bit as if we haven't got a sustained break below the upper boundary line of the trend channel. Now on the 1 hour chart, however, it looks a little bit as if we're back in the range. Does it matter so much? Not really. I think what matters more is to understand on the 1 hour chart what are the relevant invalidation points. We're going to take a look at that as well. But here on the daily chart, overall, the pattern is just being followed at the moment. On the daily chart, we said, okay, in the white scenario, the 1, 2, 3 waves could be complete. And if there is a wave 4 pullback, this is the area I'm going to watch. It's located between $59,780 to $64,728. From there, we can watch for a reaction and the start of wave 5. In the blue scenario, we might see a little bit of a deeper pullback. Here we have 5 waves already completed, and we could get a deeper pullback in a wave 2. So we have a wave 1 to the upside, a wave 2 pullback, and then we can go from there. And these are the 2 bullish scenarios, right, which are based on the idea that on the 5th of August, a substantial low formed in this larger degree wave 4. And only below the support area here, below $53,768, I would have to assume that a larger degree 4th wave is unfolding. That would be the alternative scenario. Until then, I'm looking for higher, and I assume that Bitcoin has started the rally to 90 to 100K. I can always be wrong, but that's why we're tracking the FIB levels, which will give us key risk levels, but they also will tell us when the alternative scenario is playing out. And that would be below, or at least with a high likelihood, below 53,768 USD, because that's the support area relevant for the blue count, which also only works if the larger degree 4th wave indeed bottomed on the 5th of August. Now zooming out a little bit, once we get this 5th wave up complete in the white count, and I prefer the white count at the moment, blue would be an option, but we will probably know more about that during the next deeper pullback. Again, it all depends a little bit on what happens next week. Again, we're going to discuss that in the member live stream. These are kind of topics that we reserve for our Sunday conversations. But if we get that pullback, right, and then we rally higher, we form 5 waves up in the white wave 1, then get a wave 2 pullback, then we could rally towards 100K and maybe even more according to that roadmap like that. Okay, just need to shift everything a little bit here. And that would end the bull market in my current interpretation. If anything changes, I will of course let you know. So that's how I see it. And now let's take a look at the smaller time frame. Yeah, as I said, with that trend line here, you can see we actually broke below it. But again, it will depend a little bit on the exchange, how exactly you draw the trend lines. I'm not so, I don't find that trend line so important. What's more important is that the last rally that we saw from the Friday low was a 3-wave move only, and we saw the price getting rejected in our resistance area, and now we're breaking lower, forming lower lows and lower highs. I already mentioned in the last video, which I made before we actually broke lower, that you know, because of that weakness and that 3-wave move up, I already shared with you the support areas that we need to watch if the price really goes lower. Now this would be the area between 64,278 and 66,992. It is a tricky structure to track, but best interpretation I can offer is that this here was an A wave down, a B wave up, and we're now moving down in wave C. That would be at least the interpretation. Now I can tell you that this third wave doesn't really look finished. So if this is really the count, it should go a little bit lower probably. I mean, you can never rule out that the internal C wave is an ending diagonal and the third wave might be short. We're doing a 4 now and then just get one more low in 5. But overall, well, it's possible, right? That's actually possible given that the 100% extension is at 66,990. I will not rule this out. I will not rule this out that we're already in the 4th wave. That's why we have the blue area, right? We'll see. It would look best with one more low, and then we could start a B wave bounce. We'll see what happens. However, this microstructure is only going to be valid as long as we stay below 69,930, yesterday's swing high. What would happen if we break above it? If we go higher already, I would have to assume that the C wave was short. Okay, I would have to assume that we only formed a very short C wave probably. Again, in this case, the wave 1 is very long anyway, right? So wave 1, wave 2, ideally the third goes a bit lower. So I would prefer this just because how long the wave 1 is. But sometimes C waves, especially if they're ending diagonals, they form somewhat strange structures. But again, there hasn't really been a bounce. It's just sideways consolidation after yesterday's drop. So for now, I don't see any change to the structure. If we break higher from here, then I would track the B wave bounce, the larger B wave bounce. I can already add resistance for this B wave to the chart. This is sort of standard resistance, which would actually start at the 50% fib level. So at around 70,680. But this resistance area will need to be adjusted with the price if we go a little bit lower, which at this stage would kind of be expected to go a little bit lower. But we'll see. I mean, there's a little bit of follow through after Friday's drop, but nothing major yet. So if we reach this support area, I would watch for a possible reaction. That's the update about Bitcoin. Hope you liked the update. If you did, please hit the like button, leave a comment and subscribe. And if you really like the content, then please check out the channel membership. Also make sure that you follow us on Instagram and Twitter for additional content. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye-bye.